All right. We are now going live recording. It says live on my screen, but we're recording. So everyone, I want to introduce you to my guests. They're from Alaska, and I'm very thrilled that we don't have just one or two guests this time. Now I have three guests, and wow, I haven't done this many people before, so it's going to be interesting, and we'll try to get everybody's stories in there. So, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to share my screen. There we go. I'm going to show, I actually highlighted Anchorage, but you're not all from Anchorage. So, let me take it off. Why is it shifted? There you go. So, there you guys are. It'll take a second. So, Jazzmin, you're from Anchorage here. Are you seeing that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And then Delisa, I believe you're from Wasilla.
Yes.
Right there. And then Mike, tell me again, you're in between somewhere here.
Yeah, kind of if you follow the yellow line between Anchorage and Palmer there, it's sort of halfway in between.
Okay. Great. I'm going to keep it on there for a second because I'm going to tell a little bit about Alaska. Alaska is the United States' most northwest state. It's bordered by British Columbia and the Yukon in Canada, and Russia across the Bering Strait. And then, did I take somebody off screen? No, I didn't. Okay. It has 20 of the highest mountain peaks in the U.S., 100,000 glaciers. You can see the northern lights in Fairbanks for 243 days of the year, which is amazing. And there is approximately one bear to every 21 people, which I thought was interesting. It is the United States' 49th state as of 1959, which isn't that long ago, and a population of over 700,000 people as of the 2019 census. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And what I'm going to ask is if you guys can go ahead and just tell us about yourselves, what you're involved with, what kind of activism you do, or, just tell us about yourself.
Well, I'll go first. My name is Jazzmin. I go to UAA, so that's the university here for Alaska, and I also work for Covenant House Alaska, specifically Passage House, which is a transitional housing program for young mothers or expecting mothers, and it's absolutely a sanctuary for those girls. It's a really wonderful place. As well as I have done some activism in Alaska. I lived in Washington for 2.5 years, from like 22 to 24 years old, and I did activism there. So I've tried to try whatever was, whatever opportunity there has been. I went to one DXE disruption at Sprouts Grocery Store in LA. While I was there, I figured, hey, let me try this. I also been to LA Veg Fests, and then I was introduced to National Animal Rights Day and the Our Planet There's Two organization there. So I was able to host 3 of those events here, which have been really fun and definitely surprising to have so many people come together. The first one I think was just my favorite. At first, I didn't know, how many people would be there. And I think we had over 70 people participating throughout the whole time. And most of those people were vegan and were saying, I didn't know there were other vegans in Alaska. So that was really cool. It was we all kind of got to come together in solidarity and had a few people pass by that got to learn as well. And I also volunteer at the sanctuary when I can, at the Forget Me Not Farm Sanctuary. And Delisa does Veg Fests for Alaska as well, so I try to go to those, and they're really great forms of activism. And yeah, whatever the opportunity is there, if there's a call to action and I feel like it's going to help, I'll be there.
Awesome.
Yeah, so my name is Mike. I have been in Alaska since I was 8 years old, so most of my life I've been here. became vegan in 2013, and my partner Rachel and I started Forget Me Not Farm Sanctuary kind of informally in 2015 when we rescued some chickens, and then it's become, more formal and incorporated, and we have the, 501c3 status and everything. But that's our primary form of vegan activism, is rescuing animals and caring for them, and trying to sort of spread the word of, these animals' individual personalities, and giving people a chance to meet them and see them in a situation where they're well cared for. And then, I think we met Jazzmin through your first Animal Rights Day, and then we met Delisa through the Alaska Vegan Society and potlucks and Veg Fest. And so Rachel and I have done some activism, like attending the National Animal Rights Day. We've done the Cube of Truth. We've done some just random pamphleting where we'll go to like a market in the summer and hand out pamphlets.
Do you guys have an AP chapter there?
We did.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so it was. I don't know that we have one now, but there was someone who kind of was hosting them for a bit.
Sure. That happened.
Yeah, yeah, I think she might have moved. But yeah, I've seen since becoming vegan in 2013, and now there's definitely more and more people I know, and I think it's just a growing movement, each year.
Awesome. Delisa?
So, yes, I'm Delisa Renideo, and I grew up in Alaska, moved up here before we became a state.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah, when I was 6 years old, so I'm actually 70 now, and have been.
And I see some of your pictures, and I wish I had the guns that you did. You need to go work out. You're doing great. So yeah, good for you.
Well, I know it's because of my lifestyle, because I actually became vegan. Well, I started paying attention to nutrition in my 20s because I was very unhealthy in my 20s, had all kinds of inflammatory processes all through my body, and the doctors didn't, they had no idea what caused it. There wasn't any cure for it, so they just would treat the symptoms, and it was getting worse and worse and worse. And finally I realized that if I was going to get better, I had to help myself, and I didn't know what that might look like, but I thought, well, I'll start with food. So I started learning everything I could about nutrition. This was in the mid-'70s. And I just did the most obvious things in the beginning, and I did a lot of reading. And I came across Frances Moore LePay's book, Diet for a Small Planet. And when I read that, I became vegetarian. But because of the belief in that time that you had to complement your proteins, I thought it sounded too complicated to give up all animal products. So I continued to eat dairy and eggs, a lot of dairy and eggs. But other than that, was vegetarian for the most part for the next 10 years. And then I read John Robbins' book, Diet for a New America, and became vegan. And so that was about 31 years ago. And so then I've continued to learn more and more about nutrition and began teaching vegan nutrition and cooking courses in Alaska in 2003. And,
wow, great.
Yeah, and then in 2006.
So what year did you become vegan?
Oh, I think it was either 89 or 90, something, one of those. Yeah.
That's great. Great.
And
I didn't
so,
become vegan until I think 2006. So it's been about 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's amazing how the years pile up.
Right. It's amazing how much it's changed just in the 15 years since I started. I mean, I've seen amazing leaps and bounds. It's totally different now to be vegan.
Well, I always I moved away from Alaska and moved back. I was vegan when I moved back to Alaska in '91, and I often tell people I was the only vegan I knew. I literally didn't know any. I had been living in North Carolina when I became vegan, and I'll tell you, Alaska's really easy to be vegan compared to North Carolina.
Really? It's because of all the barbecue, just the attitudes there, and yeah, I
Well,
lived in Atlanta
So-
for a long time.
So that's
Yeah.
really interesting because I'm traveling to North Carolina in August, and I'm hoping there'll be some all vegan restaurants because that's what I'm used to when I go out of state. So
It's easier
so
now.
just-
I think she's talking about when
Yeah.
she lived there, though.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I
Yeah.
moved there in '91, so 30 years ago. So hopefully, but yeah,
I saw a lot has
it
changed.
was not. But anyway, it really was never hard to be vegan because I was not eating processed foods anyway. And so they always had vegetables and fruits and beans and grains and nuts and seeds. So no matter where you go, you can eat vegan.
Sure.
When people say it's hard to be vegan, it's because it's hard to find processed vegan food.
Yeah,
But
it's
if you're
hard. Yeah, they just want to replace their burgers and hot dogs.
Exactly. Right. But that is not what I wanted to do. And so I never found it difficult. And so when I came to Alaska, I was the only vegan I knew. And then I would share it with other people. I wasn't trying to beat anybody's door down, but I eventually gathered a small group of people who were interested in it, and I got them to read John Robbins' books. And so a small group of us started the Alaska Vegan Society in 2002. And so, we've done a lot of different things throughout that period of time. And it stayed very small in terms of the number of people that we could reach until 2006, because that's when I started teaching vegan nutrition and cooking classes through PCRM, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And so I was one of their first instructors. And so I was teaching the Cancer Project classes, and I did that for 6 years, from 2006 to 2012. And so the people that I was reaching there were the primary feeders for the Alaska Vegan Society. And so most people came to it for health reasons.
Yeah.
Because of what I was doing. And so, but then as a result of not eating animals anymore, then people's consciousness started to shift.
Started making the connection.
Right. And so, in 2012, I started just teaching classes through my own business and not through PCRM anymore. And the name of my business is Yes to Life. And so to me, that's a nice broad topic, and it's yes to all life, not just human life, not just animal life.
You're a pioneer. I'm really impressed. I am so impressed, and I'm delighted that I get to hear your story and get to meet you. That's very impressive.
Well, thank you. It's just living one day at a time and doing what seems like the thing to do today, And so anyway, it has grown. And my outreach continues to be through nutrition and cooking. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is just because over the years, I've had a lot of education about it and a lot of training. And, I've gotten certified through T. Colin Campbell's program. And so, but I also really think that it should not be one or the other. I believe it needs to be both, because there's too many unhealthy vegans in the world, in my opinion. And I personally think that we owe it to ourselves to live the healthiest yes to life that we can. And if you can't do that, if we're obese and sick. And I got to find out what it was like in my 20s to be sick. And now I'm not sick. I don't have anything holding me back. And so I know what it's like to be chronically ill, and I know what it's like to be chronically well. And I choose the wellness, and I want that for other people. But when people become vegan for the animals, and then they just eat a whole bunch of vegan junk food, they often don't feel that well, for good reason, because they're not well nourished. And then they can become sick, and they quit being vegan. And And they also aren't a very good advertisement for other people to become vegan, because it's like, well, you don't look that healthy to me, or you don't feel that good. So I really feel like being a healthy vegan is, it's a way to be able to maintain our veganism, and it's a good way to promote it without actually promoting it. It's just like, oh, what do you do? How do you stay, slim and healthy? Well, I eat a plant-based diet, but it doesn't mean that I don't care about the animal, because I do it. And every time somebody becomes vegan, or even if they just eat less animal products, I think to myself, think how many less animals are being killed because of this. And so, I've been delighted that Mike and Rachel have an animal sanctuary, and I've been delighted that Jazzmin has taken the lead in organizing the NARD program. She's an amazing organizer, I have to say. She's pulled off some great events, and I know from my own experience, it's not that easy to pull off events. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so, so I really appreciate everybody else's efforts to do that, even though that hasn't been where I'm putting my energy. I did write a cookbook. You can grab it. It's called the Barefoot Gardener in the Kitchen cookbook.
That's okay. Barefoot Gardener in the Kitchen. Awesome.
Yeah. And so I'm a big time gardener. And so the cookbook is all full of healthy plant-based meals and little stories and little quotes and little things like, nonviolence leads to the highest ethics, which is the goal of all evolution. Until we stop harming all other living beings, we are still savages. Thomas Edison. So, I have just little things in here to help. But
so can you garden a lot? I mean, to be honest, I probably have had the same view as most people, and that is you think Alaska and you just think cold. Well, I know you guys have summers there, but can you tell us a little bit more about that? Oh, you're going to show us your garden?
This is what my garden looks like right now.
How long do you have like summers where you can grow vegetables?
About 3 months. But this is what my indoor garden looks like right now. I'm starting my seeds so that I can plant outdoors. Gardens, I've gardened in northern New York, in North Carolina, and Alaska is by far the best.
Really?
Because we have like unlimited daylight between June and, June, July, August are the gardening months. And so we can't grow the things that require a really long growing season, like melons, or anything that requires a lot of heat, like corn. Some people can grow some if they have a microclimate that's, conducive, but a lot of things grow extremely well. And so I love gardening here.
Well, I have a bit of a black thumb. I've tried. I would love to be a gardener. I do dream of having my own garden. I have for a couple decades. I just, I'm not really great at it. I need some lessons. But as far as what you were saying about, health, the more I'm doing these interviews, the more, because I am talking to people in different countries where they are more whole foods than we would be in the lower 48, because we do have more access to like the Beyond Burgers and stuff like that. As an activist, I just want people to stop harming animals, so I don't really care. I'm not going to food shame. I don't care what you're eating. But as I get older, and as I do these interviews, it is becoming more obvious to me that I need to eat better if I want to be around to help the animals.
Right.
That I do need to watch my health. But again, I just, I'm 51, so I need to, I'm starting to feel the effects of not eating well when I don't. So yeah, this is I'm more conscious of it. But I wish I could have a garden. So
well, you can start small.
Yeah, like I said, I bought a basil plant that was just lush and beautiful. It died in a week. I don't know what it was. But
yeah, I can relate to that on such a high level, Stacey. I tried last summer to have a garden for the first time. I reached out to Delisa and was like, "Hey, am I doing this right? And she was like, I really want this to go well. Gave me a lot of advice. And I don't know exactly how it went because I would water it every few days. And then since I was doing the garden with roommates, we couldn't link our schedules up to go and actually take everything out of the garden when it was time. So everything just froze and we didn't take anything out of the garden. And so my experience with gardening has made me really, really, really appreciate farmers markets and local farmers. And that's gonna be my form of gardening from now on.
Oh, wow.
Well, I kind of believe in life and, the whole life cycle and the food web. And, we have to have healthy soil to have healthy gardens, have to have healthy gardens to have healthy plants, to have healthy people, to then take care of the animals in a healthy way. And so I just like to connect the circle a little bit more. And I think that it's easier to appreciate all of it when we have a more intimate relationship with some parts of it, because I think one of our problems with treating animals so badly is that we feel so disconnected from them. They're just a milk machine or a meat machine, and we don't think about them as being the beings and the personalities that they are. But I think that goes along with objectifying pretty much everything. And so I think feeling more connected with the life force and everything, it doesn't need to be species specific or even, plants, animals, humans. It all is life. So I kind of look at it from that perspective, and I really, just like people are more likely to care about the animals once they stop eating them, I think that once they start growing good plants, they're more interested in eating good plants. And, I just think that there's all that connection can happen. But I also know that not everybody's interested in everything. I tend to be interested in everything. And I like to learn about everything. And that's one good thing about getting older. You just have more time to learn more things.
Yeah, I tend to have, I tend to be all over the place. I like learning, but it makes it harder for me to concentrate on one thing, like having a garden or something like that. Because
Right.
As soon as I start the garden, I'm like off to something else. But I want to move on a little bit. I want to ask Mike, like you and Rachel. I want to ask you about your sanctuary. I want to show your sanctuary. I honestly, I don't think most people would think Alaska as being a place for a sanctuary. I know, of course, you need sanctuaries everywhere. I'm involved with, obviously, I'm involved with sanctuaries here locally. But I mean, it's rough in the winter. So please tell me a little bit about like caring for all those animals. How many animals do you have?
I think we have 27 total.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so we have 2 turkeys. We've got 3 rabbits. We have 13 chickens and 11 pigs. And they're kind of, they've each got their different areas. And yeah, I guess it is hard in the winter. The summer's, wonderful. It's always generally a pleasant temperature. It's not super hot like you would get in other parts of the States. I think the main thing in the winter, you've got cold, so you have to worry about keeping their water thawed, and then having a warm place for them. So we have heaters set up. We moved out here to Eagle River in the summer of 2019, so definitely that first winter was kind of like running extension cords and trying to make it happen. Now we actually ran some electricity and buried it underground, and so things are a lot more established, and a lot of that's just kind of takes care of itself. One thing we always have to keep in mind, we have an indoor thermostat. So every night and morning, we're checking the temperatures in the pig house and the chicken coops and stuff to make sure temperatures are good, making sure the water's thawed. And then, the snow is the other thing that is challenging. So if we get a big snowfall, I've got a lot of different paths and places that I walk when I go to feed the animals and take care of them. So there's a lot of shoveling and snow blowing and snow clearing, just as
How
part
do
of
the
it.
animals fare in the temperatures there in
They
the
seem to do
winter?
quite well. I mean, the chickens we have are typically cold hardy. Our rescues are coming from local situations. So, like you said, Alaska might be kind of you might not expect to have one in Alaska, partly because of just the cold winters, but also because we don't have factory farms here.
Sure.
But
Yeah,
that
I was
doesn't
going to
mean
say
that,
you probably don't have factory farms there.
right, there aren't the factory farms, and so some people think, what are the animals to rescue? But there's a lot of sort of backyard operations
Yeah.
and smaller farms, and they're using the animals for what they can give them, and they don't give them the best care. Like chickens, especially, right? Someone will get some chickens, and they lay eggs for a year, two at the most, and then to that person, they don't mean anything because they're not really laying eggs anymore. So
Yeah, because they're not
that's
giving
where our
anything.
chickens, yeah, and they're either going to kill them or they just put them, on Craigslist for free for someone else to come pick up and
Yeah, you
dispose
hear
of.
so many
So,
people when I do outreach, they're like, "What about backyard chickens?" Well, why do you have the backyard chickens?
right.
You
Like,
know, you have them for a purpose, and when they stop serving that purpose, what are you going to do with them? So just, what about backyard chickens?
right. It's kind of like Delisa said about like a cow is a milk machine or a chicken is an egg machine. And I think backyard chickens, sure, it's a better lifestyle most of the time than being in like a battery cage in a factory farm.
Why not? For the male chicks, they all get killed anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Or dumped because they find out they're a rooster. They just, throw them into the wilderness, and they're not really, adept to survive here. So that's basically a death sentence. But you're right. Just the whole mentality of they're there to be used, basically, right? They're not there for themselves to give the chickens the best life they can. They just want them for what they can offer the person.
And you said that you went vegan in 2013, right?
Yes.
And were you and Rachel together at the time?
Yes.
So did you go to vegan together?
Basically, yeah.
What made you? What flipped that switch for you guys?
It was basic. I mean, just a real quick summary. It started, I would say, I mean, Rachel's always loved animals, and both of us have, but we watched the documentary The Cove, which led to her going into, dolphin activism, which took her to Los Angeles, and then she met some vegans there who brought up Earthlings. And so it was really the documentary Earthlings that flipped the switch. When she got back from that trip, she showed me just like 10 or 15 minutes of it, and it was kind of like, I don't know, it was just really like a flip head switch.
I find Earthlings, to be honest with you, I find Earthlings to be even more intense than Dominion. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah, so it was basically that, and we decided immediately to reduce our consumption of animals, but it did feel too extreme somehow to just say, like go vegan that same day. And I guess it's because we'd been eating animals up until then, so it seemed like, how do we do this? And so over the course of just a couple months, it went from, occasionally eating meat and dairy and eggs to saying like we either got to go all or nothing here, because it felt wrong every time we were doing it.
You're like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Right.
No, the hardest part was just habits, like we knew the food places and the foods we liked, and then probably the most difficult was just like the cultural and family expectations. If you're used to going to Thanksgiving dinner, and now you got to change that, and so that was hard. But yeah, we just kind of, we talked about it and decided we either had to go fully vegan or kind of like, what's the point? And I mean, that's not to say it doesn't help when people do Meatless Monday or things like that, but because we were coming from it from an ethical standpoint, we started to kind of identify these animals as individuals, and then eating even one of them felt wrong. So, but yeah, it was basically The Cove, which led to...
Okay, let's just have Don't Beat Your Wife Mondays, and
Right.
Let's not, kick a dog Tuesdays. It's like, come on, just do it all the time.
Yeah, the logic is a little weird, but it's just hard for people, I think, when it's so like to suddenly. There's got to be a bit of a transition for everyone, I think.
Sure, but I think it's also like when Delisa mentioned how she was eating when she was vegetarian, a lot of eggs and cheese.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I never called myself vegetarian. I never knew I was headed towards being vegan. But when I did start to travel down that path, um, and I eliminated meat, and I didn't know about the dairy and egg industry at the time. I know that I substituted all that meat that I took out of my diet. I substituted with double cheese. I
Mm-hmm.
doubled up on the cheese. I hate eggs, but I was eating eggs. And that's the problem with vegetarianism is the fact that they say, "Well, I'm not eating meat." Well, yeah, but you're doubling up on. I mean, I think the dairy industry is far worse than the meat industry, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It is much more suffering involved. And anyways, not to get too heavy there, I did find your sanctuary.
Okay.
Now I'm going to share it.
Okay.
And let me know if you're seeing that.
Okay, that is correct.
All right.
I was speaking of clearing the snow, so there's that picture on the top right.
Yeah.
Because while the animals fare quite well with the cold, when you get a big snowfall, now the pigs go from having this big run to having a small covered area, right? And so we'll go in and we actually snow blow the entire area so that
So you're in Eagle River there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's part of that. That's JJ.
Aw. What a face. That's a good picture. What is that?
Oh, this was a fire that we had up near us, probably 2 miles away, and we posted it just as like a reminder of how we have to be ready to evacuate if something like that happens. Surprisingly, in Alaska, the last what was it? Summer of 2019, we had quite a few fires, and so we started thinking more and more about we need to get like a trailer organized and enough kennels to, within a short period of time, get all our animals scooped up and out of here. So hopefully that never happens, but it's possible.
But can I ask, is this Rachel?
Yes.
I'm sorry she's not joining us today. She's feeling under the weather. I hope she feels better.
Yeah, thank you.
So, so I will stop sharing the screen. So we got to see a little bit about that. Yeah, it's scary. Actually, a local sanctuary to us just had a fire in their barn the other day.
Mm.
And one of their animals was a little more injured than they had originally thought. So now he needs some care. But at least everybody's alive. And,
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's very scary. Very scary. Yeah, where do you evacuate to?
Right, and it's not like just putting a couple dogs in a car or something. Like we've cut 200-pound pigs and a bunch of birds and rabbits, and so it would be quite a scramble. But if we've got the kennels ready and the trailer ready, and we were even thinking about this summer doing some practice runs almost. Again, we hope it's never.
Maybe this is just the universe telling you, getting you prepared, to hopefully not ever happen. But you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing with safety is you prepare for the worst, but you hope it never happens. But as long as we're prepared, then we feel a lot more comfortable. Yeah.
So let me ask. So you have volunteers that Jazzmin volunteers for you as well, right?
Yes.
Do you have regular volunteer days? Do you get a lot of people that are interested in this? Do you do outreach, a little vegan outreach as they meet the animals, or?
Yeah, so it's been a little weird with the coronavirus, and so we haven't really had tours. And typically we don't do many in the winter, but yes, we want to get a more regular tour program going, just like most farm sanctuaries have. And the purpose of that is to let people experience the animals, and see their personalities and start to connect with them. But yeah, we've got regular volunteers. We have 2 that come every week, and kind of honestly, the main thing is picking up poop. So like clearing out the stalls and picking up the poop in the yard just to keep their places clean. So we have 2 people.
Yeah, I work with dogs. I've been working with dogs for 15 years, and it's so funny how many people I see come in that think, "Oh, I'm just gonna get to hang out with puppies all day."
Yeah,
you're gonna be cleaning up poop all day. Okay, this is your life.
Yeah, there's a lot of poop. It's not the worst thing picking up poop out there. The pigs are hanging out with you, and they're super cute. So, but yeah, I mean, we always need more volunteers. but we're blessed to have those that we do. And yeah, I mean, Jazzmin can probably tell you her experience. She's come and helped clean out the chicken houses, and she's definitely picked up a fair share of pig poop. And
Do
yeah,
you get a lot of support from the community? I mean, whether it be from volunteers, but just like support from the community around you?
yeah, I mean, we've got a handful of, a good number of monthly donors and then periodic donors. We actually just had a call yesterday from someone who wants to sponsor a pig, which sponsor is basically like a monthly donation that helps pay for that pig's care. And they're doing it as a gift for someone they know, someone who loves animals. And this person maybe hasn't made that connection, but they're doing it for this other person. And I think that's neat because it'll kind of open up their eyes too. So we see stuff
You
like
do
that.
like the sponsor, like I did sponsor a turkey on Thanksgiving and stuff like that.
Yeah, sponsor a turkey for Thanksgiving, and she was this lady called was doing like sponsoring a pig kind of for Easter. You could sponsor a chicken too; it'd make sense for Easter. But yeah, it's nice to see people doing that. In the past, before the coronavirus, we did have some work parties out here, and I was always really surprised by the number of people. Like we would have, I'm trying to remember, but 12 to 15 people show up, to help move rocks out of the chicken area or set posts when we were setting up the chicken runs and just doing general kind of cleanup and construction stuff. So we're hoping this summer we can have some of that. And we do, periodic work
Well, it's better
parties.
than going to a zoo. And I saw that you guys did have a zoo. And for some reason, when I saw that on the map, I was just like shocked by it because it didn't occur to me that Anchorage would have a zoo. I mean, it's hard. And I lived in Chicago. And, just the winters there, they keep the animals inside. It's so depressing.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a sad story here there was an elephant in the Alaska Zoo, which just seems completely backwards. Like, they do have bears and moose.
Elephant in Alaska.
Right. I don't like the bears and the moose either because they're kind of caged up. And I guess some of them they're rehabilitating, but I don't. Overall, it's a zoo. Like the zoo is the zoo, and there's certainly animals there that shouldn't be there. But the elephant was particularly sad, and they actually had kind of a campaign to free her, and they did end up sending her to California or something. I don't know if Jazzmin or Delisa but they finally did. Maggie, I think is her name.
Yeah, I can't remember. It's been quite a few years ago, but yes, they mailed her someplace.
Yeah, I hope and think it was sort of like an animal, not a sanctuary, but like a refuge, like where they have a bigger space, and it's not just cages. But yeah, it's surprising that Alaska has a zoo. I guess I don't like that there's zoos anywhere, but there's certainly climates where it seems like the animals at least can get some nice space and warmth.
Yeah, I just can't imagine the zoo being open or the animals being allowed out very, very much during the year.
Yeah, it's funny. We actually used to go to the zoo quite a bit. I think because before you're vegan, if you love animals, you think of
I did too.
These animals, right? And it's like it's fun to see them, but it's not a nice space for them to be in.
Yeah, I once told the story about how I started going vegan. I started down that path, and I moved to Chicago, and I knew a girl who actually trained the primates. So I got to go back, kind of backstage in a way, go behind the scenes and meet primates, and I was fascinated. But I told him I was like, it's right before I was making the connection, but realized me and my boyfriend at the time went to a zoo in Chicago, and I was just like, this is sad. I don't want to do this again. You know what I mean? So, Jazzmin, you told us a little bit about your activism. When did you tell us? When did you go vegan?
No, I went vegan in 2015, and I did it originally for health, for a diet. So in 2015, I was living in Washington, and I actually went vegan over YouTube. I didn't meet another vegan until 6 months after I'd been vegan.
I know how that feels. But you kind of hit the ground running. I went vegan around 2006, but I didn't get active until about 2016. It took me about 10 years. I didn't know any vegans really. So
yeah, It was such a life changing experience for me. But yeah, so growing up, I distinctly remember a time in middle school when I heard the word vegan, and I heard somebody say, "Oh, what's a vegan? A vegan is somebody who doesn't eat animal products." And I remember thinking to myself, "Why would somebody do that?" And not being able to come up with an answer myself, genuinely not being able to think of why someone would not eat animal products. And so when I was 22, I actually heard an argument for veganism for the very first time. And I was searching for diet information. I was really into health and fitness and diet. And, as soon as I heard the first argument for a plant-based vegan diet, I thought, of course, I'll try it. And that's how it started. I was super excited, saw a bunch of YouTube videos, saw a lot of people as great examples of healthy vegans. And so I went to the grocery store and started out all whole food plant-based for the first 6 months that I was vegan. So I felt amazing. Like within the first week, I knew that this was the diet I'd been looking for, the health I'd been looking for, and that this was different. I was like, okay, this is different, and this is what I've been trying to find. And then it was a month in when I think I really went what I call vegan now, because that was when I made sort of like the connection. I hear a lot of people always saying like I made the connection, and I feel like I definitely had that moment. It was like, wholly embodying and just completely engulfing. And it was actually the video by Mercy for Animals on YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube still, and it's
good. Then maybe you'll watch this when it comes out.
I will. I'll definitely check out your channel. And I want to hear about Mongolia. I want to hear about all these places.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's Mercy for Animals, kind of a classic video that they have, and called Hatchery Horrors. And so it shows the hatcheries for eggs, and I just had a moment where, even though between starting a whole food plant-based diet, feeling amazing, and then that was a month in. In between then, I had seen bits and pieces of slaughterhouse footage and factory farm footage for cows, pigs, and chickens, and my thought was, I'm so glad that I'm not part of that, and I have no desire to right now at all. Yeah. And that same day, though, a month later, that before I watched Hatchery Horrors, I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, well, what about eating steak? Like, am I never going to eat steak again? And it took me time throughout the day, and probably till after that moment when I, had that experience, that I realized it wasn't that I was like, oh, I'd really like to eat steak again. It was like, for me growing up, steak was the thing that brought us together. Whenever, my dad would cook it, it's like, oh, he's doing this caring thing for everyone. We're all going to sit at the table. We're, going to eat as a family. And it was just the association that I had with, and I also felt like, oh, like it's a thing of luxury. And so that was the feeling that I was like, oh, am I going to give up this, like, kind of the one thing my family has done together regularly growing up. And but once I realized that it's just, that association, and of course the feeling and everything that I would miss, not the actual
go through that,
piece of cow. And so when I saw Hatchery Horrors and I saw like the baby chicks falling into the grinder, that was the moment when I realized it doesn't matter if I have a strong emotional reaction to seeing cows, pigs, and chickens, any animals, any person suffering. It doesn't matter if I care very much. It matters that there's someone inside that body and they're having that horrible experience of being victimized. And baby chicks was something I grew up knowing it was a baby, and I was taught this is a baby, we take care of them. So seeing them being tortured so quickly, so horrifically, that's what really got me to realize, like, there's somebody there, and there's like, and they're babies, there's, and if we could do this for eggs, then, at that point I was like, I want nothing to do with animal products ever in my life. And I knew it was like, I'd never want to touch it again after that. And
I know a lot of people get touched by that footage, that grind footage really hits a lot of people.
Kind of a funny story. Right after that, I called a friend, and I was hysterically crying for like 3 hours, and I had like a panic attack, and it was just, and I don't regularly have have them. So it was really, it really shook me up, the whole experience. So I call a friend and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just saw this. Did you know this? Oh my goodness. And they said to me, oh yeah, that's why I don't eat chicken nuggets. And I'm like,
and they didn't tell you.
yeah, I'm like, yeah, you didn't tell me. First of all. Second of all, it's not chicken nuggets. Third of all, this is so serious. And so yeah, that's been the hardest part about being vegan, is that just that everybody doesn't know about it. The hardest part about being vegan is the ignorance of veganism.
Yeah, it's why you people around you that you love and care for, contributing to what you know is awful, and still you want to love and care for these people, but it hurts.
Yeah, and I really feel like anybody, in my experience, who has seen what I've seen, and it was also a really good time for me, I think, because I had the time to do a bunch of research. I had, I think, just the emotional health at the time to take in such horrible information as well. And so all the cards were in my favor at the time too. But I really think that anybody who was in my experience, 99.9% of the population would do and feel the same way I do.
We would hope. We would hope.
Yeah, I think we're headed that way. I think so.
Excuse me. We would. So you're an activist. I wanted to ask about that. Did we hear, when did you go vegan? When?
2015. It was July 5th, and I thought, like, I'll probably want to remember this day. So 3 months shy of 6 years now.
That's great. So, but you became an activist pretty quickly after that, right?
I think it was kind of as soon as I started feeling good, I was calling my family and saying, "Oh my gosh, I feel great. You should try this."
Yeah.
So,
but
I think I've kind of.
When did you do the first NARD up there, the first National Animal Rights Day up there? Did you do that?
Yeah, so that was in 2017.
Awesome.
I think my personality as a kid has always been, hey, let's look at this thing and let's make it better. So it was a really just natural thing for me to do, to try to tell everybody, oh my gosh, we have to change. And definitely ran into some problems at first. I was one of those people, I've heard, a lot of people have the experience where you think you're going to post the facts on Facebook and everybody's going to go, oh, I'm vegan now. And then the world will be it's great. And that's not what happened. But I tried it. And, so that can be really rough. I did have my friends and family, a lot of them, especially on Facebook, treat me differently because I was sharing this specific information, which didn't make sense to me because I'd always been this vocal person.
Are you said you're not originally from Alaska, though. I mean, like Delisa.
Yeah, I am.
Since they were young. So.
Yeah, I'm from Alaska. So I happened to be in Washington. Yeah, I happened to be in Washington when I went vegan in 2015. I spent 2.5 years there, but I grew up in Alaska, went to high school here. I went to the same high school that my mom went to as well. My parents grew up here, and my grandparents are still in Fairbanks. And so, yeah, I've been in Alaska 99% of my life.
And I usually ask what the culture and the food is like there, but I'm sure it's just like everywhere else. A lot of meat, but especially like, do you all, any of you, tell me, do you find that like the hunting culture to be a little stronger up there? People proud of their hunting, stuff like that. Because you think of the wilderness when you think of Alaska.
Yeah, I mean, people definitely travel here for hunting and for fishing, and there's people that live here who, it's a big part of their life. So I guess I don't have a lot of other places to compare it to.
Why you get
it's definitely a big part of the culture.
That's unfortunate. Do you guys have any vegan restaurants or anything like that, though? No.
So
we do now have an all-vegan food truck.
Yeah, food truck.
You do?
Was recently, last summer he started, I think.
Yeah.
And it's all vegan, so that's pretty neat. And there are a handful of restaurants with vegan options. Some like very clearly marked on the menu, which is nice. We've become pretty adept at, going to places we like and figuring out how to make things vegan. But like since we went vegan, like a very famous place that people go to here when they visit Alaska is called Moose's Tooth. It's a pizza place and a brewery. Certainly not Whole Foods plant-based, but it's, people love going there, and they now offer like vegan cheese, and they used to have a pie, like their pizza crust was not vegan. Now they offer an option where it is, so it's like cool to see stuff like that happening.
Yeah, that's
Just
something
more
I
and
was
more.
going to ask you. Like, what's available in the store? Do you have like alternatives available in your groceries? In
Oh, yeah.
grocery stores
Yeah.
and stuff like that? Are they readily available?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
now,
like
what
you
about?
mentioned, Beyond Meat, they just have that here,
Okay.
and Impossible, and then all of the.
Mayonnaise and chow cheese. And,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, and
And something I like to say. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say yes. We have that. There's in Anchorage, Natural Pantry is a store that has a lot of vegan options, but even just your regular like Fred Meyer and Walmart, more and more are stocking those things now.
Exactly. I like to say, like, when I was surprised when I did travel outside of Alaska to other states, like even Anchorage is unmistakably a city in the United States. Like we've still got all of
Really?
the staples that you see in every single city.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So so you got like toiletries and stuff like that. You have
Yeah, Walmart and Fred Meyer and Safeway. Which
now.
is
What
like
about like
Publix.
again, because it's looked at as like wilderness up there. What about like leather alternatives and down and stuff like that? Do you find like other ways that we use animals is wearing them? Do you find alternatives to those available to you?
Sure. They've had
Yeah.
all, yeah. I mean, it's very common to find, shoes that say man-made uppers and all that. And,
Right.
I mean, you can still, obviously, there's still places selling furs. There are still
That's what I
people,
was gonna say because you would associate it with like fur trapping and stuff like that.
right. And there still is a fur trapping trade up here, which is really horrific. I mean, to me, that's worse, probably the worst of anything. But there still is that. But it is definitely, compared to years ago when I was growing up here, it has shrunk a lot.
Good.
One thing that is disturbing to me is there's been a rise in women being hunters, and
Yeah.
they're moving into more of the male dominated things like being a construction worker and a trucker and all that. And so now they're also, being proud of being hunters, and I really hate to see that. I can understand it's sort of the evolution of various movements that's
Well, I've seen that too. I've seen that especially like just in just people who like trolls online who want to come at you and like make bacon though make a bacon joke on your post or whatever. It's more women now, and it just like blows my mind that women are just like it's almost like they're trying to prove something like they can be as heartless as men and like they're proud of that. I don't know what that proves when you
like I say, I think it's just an evolution of consciousness that,
like
pendulums
exploiting a female
swing.
of another species doesn't make you any tougher. I don't understand how that makes. Who are you trying to prove
I
this
think
to?
it's
You know?
I think it's a lot easier for us to see our own suffering. It's a lot easier for us to see injustices when they happen to us. But when they're happening to someone else, can we recognize that?
Well, like I see a lot of like really proud female dairy farmers now that are more vocal and stuff like that, and they're just so proud of this, and they're forcibly impregnating and taking away their children, and putting and sending them off. I mean, they're exploiting, commodifying a female, and they're so proud of this, and it's almost like it is. It's almost like they're trying to prove themselves, so that
I think
unfortunately they're doing it, proving
I
themselves
have
for
a little
men.
different I have a different perspective on that aspect of it. I mean, I think that there's another thing that's happening that has its good parts and its not good parts, and that is sort of another sort of a return to nature kind of thing, back to the land. Back in the 70s when I was young, there was a real back to the land movement. And now there's kind of another, back to gardening, back to hunting, and back to gathering, and back to all of that. And so there is this kind of self-sufficiency thing that's starting to really take hold. And I think COVID has really increased that. And I think there's a positive aspect of that. But I think that along with it is that sort of a belief that, we just have to take care of ourselves, and the animals are, that's just
They're
part of it. Well, and I don't, I think when you say these women who are proud of becoming dairy farmers, there are women that are proud of just being gardeners too. I mean, I think there's people that they're getting in touch with their abilities to sustain themselves from the earth. And that includes their using animals to do that, which I totally don't like. But I don't think it's that they're waking up to decide, I'm going to be cruel to animals. I think they're just saying, how can I be more self-sustaining?
And if you saw some of the comments they make online, it's
well,
pretty callous.
No, I'm sure.
Some of them are pretty cold-hearted and callous, and that's what really shocks me.
Right.
Well, the attitude that goes behind it, I can understand being indoctrinated into something. Like, we all grew up like being indoctrinated into eating meat. We grew up eating meat and stuff like that. But to be some of these attitudes, some of the comments you'll see online are so callous, and I'm just shocked that they're from women at times. And no offense, Mike. I expect it from men. They're not as right. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, it's just as a woman, it's very hard to see another woman be so callous. Some of the things that they say, but yeah, that's the way the world is, and that's the world over. Really, that's another reason that I'm doing this series is to see all the things that we actually have in common, no matter where we live. That especially as vegans, we have so many things in common. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but let me see. I've already asked these questions. Let me go down my list here. You basically told us about family or friends being vegan. Wait a minute? Did I ask you about that? Family and friends. What about family and friends being vegan? I think Jazzmin told me a little bit about her family and friends. Delisa, what about you? I mean, you went vegan a long time ago.
Right. Well, some of my family and friends did go vegan, but for me, it's been a very easy thing to just say, if you're in my house, you go by my lifestyle.
Sure.
I don't smoke, and I don't drink, and I don't eat meat, and I don't eat dairy products. So anyway, I don't offer people cigarettes and alcohol and animal products. So, there are other people that say, oh, well, I have to give my guests what they want. I said, my guests can do whatever they want when they're not at my house. But when they're at my house, I'm going to feed them the way I eat. And I don't feel I don't have to give them a lecture about it. And that includes if they're spending the night or the week. I mean, it doesn't matter. When you're eating at my house, you're going to eat the way, and I'm a good cook. And so Pardon? Yeah, right. Absolutely. Well, our Veg Fest guests would always come and stay here, and they always enjoyed it. But when I married my husband of 23 years, I was already vegan, and there was just no question that if you're going to live with me, it's going to be vegan. That's how I live, and he didn't never question.
Is he vegan?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't optional. I mean, it just was, and it wasn't even a big discussion. He just knew that about me, and so he basically became vegan overnight. And he didn't really even know all the reasons why. But after we were together, then he read John Robbins' book, and he understood the reasons. And he's been very much working with me in the whole vegan outreach. So. He's very much into it now, but it was just not even but now, of course, other people like my brother and sister who would come and visit, they had no problem being vegan when they were with me. And it would kind of last for a little while after they'd go home, but then they wouldn't keep doing it. But I didn't.
Yeah, they fall back.
I didn't. But my mother, I moved in with her 15 years before she died. She had Parkinson's disease, and so I started doing the cooking. So she became vegan overnight. And then my mother-in-law moved in here for a couple of years before she died. She became vegan overnight. So
awesome.
If you live here, you're vegan. But of course, that's not true of, of all my friends. And I have discovered that, everybody knows I'm vegan. Because that's the work I do in the world. That's the business I have been for decades. And so anybody who knows me, really knows me, knows I'm vegan. And a lot of people do, they get curious, and if they eat my food, they discover it's good, and if they take my classes, then they learn to do it. And so there has been, quite a lot of, I would say, influence, but I know that I cannot, I know you can really push people away when you come on real strong with it. But I'm totally unapologetic about, when you're at my house, this is how we do. It just doesn't even cross my mind to not do it that way. And so, since I'm so secure in that, it helps other people believe. They don't even think about bringing a, steak with them to say, I'll just cook my steak on you, on your stove, and So, anyways, I know a lot of people who aren't vegan, but since most of my, most of the people that I see are people who have been in my classes, and I've known them through this. So I'd say most of the people that I actually personally know are vegan, which is kind of odd.
Yeah.
But it's just because that's how I got to know them.
Yeah. Yeah, we build new families once we become vegan.
Mm-hmm.
Lose a lot of old friends and family, but we gain a lot more. So, Mike, now you and your wife, obviously vegan, went vegan together. What do your families think about that? And then you guys start a sanctuary. They think you were crazy, or?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a journey. I do agree for sure with what Delisa said as far as our house. If people come here, they know it's vegan food and they can't bring non-vegan food, right? And it was a bit of a process. Like for the first couple of years, there was a tradition of Thanksgiving down at Rachel's grandma's. We would all drive down to Kenai, which is a city south of here by about 3 hours. And so...
a dog named Kenai. That's just really weird.
Yeah.
Strange fact.
And, so we kept going to those for a bit, but it got more uncomfortable. And so then one year we said, well, you guys can do your dinner thing and we'll come the day after just so we still spend time. And then we just stopped going all together and started kind of doing our own Thanksgiving at our own house. So I think
kind of an evolution. It kind of happened that way for me as well.
Yeah, we transitioned at an age where a lot of those traditions are not in our house, but at other houses. And so that made it kind of difficult. But yeah, we basically, there was a contentious point right at the beginning where the family didn't understand it at all, and they thought we were being, insane and ridiculous. And it didn't last too long. We kind of had some heart-to-heart discussions where it was like, you keep doing whatever you're going to do, but we're just not going to participate. So if you're having a dinner, we're no longer going to show up, or we'll come afterwards, and then hang out. And that led to, quite often now they'll do vegan get-togethers. And it's not, like a whole meal, but my mom, if she's going to host a thing, she won't cook the meat anymore, and instead she puts out some fruits and veggies. And we had a point in time where we were going there weekly, Rachel and I, and my mom would find a new recipe to cook. And so that was nice. Overall, they're very supportive, but I also struggle with the fact that they're not vegan. It's kind of like what Jazzmin said, and we've all said, yeah, it's like you see the video or on YouTube, or you watch Earthlings or Dominion, and you make the connection and you kind of flip a switch and you expect when you share that info, all of them are going to have the same reaction. Suddenly everyone's vegan, but it doesn't happen that way. On a positive note, like I said, there's a lot of acceptance and support, even if they aren't vegan. And then we have had.
What do they think of the sanctuary? I mean, do they come out and get to know the animals?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, they've definitely been out here. Certainly, like in the summer, they come out and we'll have get-togethers and they'll go see the animals. So, yeah, I guess it's just kind of a blinders on. They see the animals and they love the animals.
No matter who I talk to, it doesn't matter where you talk to them from. It could be local. It could be across the world. For me, we all have the same problem.
Yeah,
we all have the same problem with their families. So, Jazzmin, what about you? I mean, what's your family? Are they supportive? I mean, you're still young, but you moved around. Were they really surprised, or when it happened, or did it change your family dynamic or your friends, or what do they think about your activism?
Interesting questions. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
My parents, they're typically really supportive of my activism, unless it's directed at them. That's where they draw the line with their support. But I do remember there was a moment when I started the diet and was calling myself vegan, and I called my parents and was like, guys, guess what? I'm vegan right now, and I'm gonna be vegan. And they were like, cool. Yeah, cool. So it was cool until I wanted them.
They had no idea.
Almost everybody in my immediate family has had a period of time where they were being vegan for a time. So they've had phases with it and ups and downs. But I really think that, like you said, it's a universal problem. I think that it's hard for them to see me outside of my role in the family, and it's hard for them to listen to the message or the facts or the information or see what I'm seeing, because it's filtered through me. And so I've said before, and I believe, like, the last people to go vegan on Earth are going to be the families of vegans.
Yeah, unfortunately. But what about your activism? What do they think of that about your activism?
They've been supportive in the ways, like, especially in the first National Rights Day, my dad stepped up to bring things to the event and help out with, like, any, like, sort of hard labor type things that he could, any connections that he had for help with it. And so they don't necessarily, I feel like my parents, they see me and they see me speaking and they see me how I might feel, and that's what they see. And as far as what I'm saying and what that feeling is coming from, it's almost like they don't hear that part.
Yeah, I feel like I've told this to other people. It feels like your family almost doesn't feel like they have to take you seriously. They're just like, you're not leaving, even if I don't, even if I piss you off, you're not gonna. What are you gonna do? That's how they feel. And in a way, it kind of takes you for granted, but I suppose we all do that with family to an extent. But yeah, it's a universal problem. So, all right. So, bottom line, would you guys say it's easy or hard to be vegan in Alaska? And what are the struggles?
Well, for me, it's been easy, totally easy, because I never cared what other people thought. I mean, I don't care if you like it.
That helps.
And so a lot of people, and it's not that I don't care about people, but it's my life and my choices. And once I see that something is the right thing for me to do, I'm going to do it. And it's like, I wanted to eat healthy food. And I mean, if I was eating the processed vegan junk food, I would be just as unhealthy as I was in my 20s. I'd probably be in a nursing home now, blind and crippled and all that. So anyway, it's super easy for me to be vegan in Alaska, because it doesn't, not that I don't care if other people are, hunting and fishing. Of course I care that they are, but it doesn't influence me to,
Yeah.
it's like, because people
Yeah.
said, why don't you move someplace where there's more vegans? And it's like, well, why? I mean, I'm making vegans by helping them learn how to be a healthy
You are.
vegan
I mean,
who
that's
loves
your
their
activist.
food. Yeah, and so, I mean, to me, it's like, I'm not just trying to find people who are already like me. And so, anyway, I love living in Alaska, and I have lived in other places, and I moved back, and I love living here, and I find it very easy. But I also understand that I'm not looking for other people's validation about my choices.
Yeah, I would agree that it's easy. We, like, there's obviously if you're cooking at home, there's all the options you could ever want. I guess the only challenge is going out to a restaurant, but it's not even that much of a challenge. Even in 2013, when I went vegan and I would go to a restaurant with friends, I could always find something. And there's more and more options every year.
There's always
So,
fries and salad, right?
well, there's always that, yeah. But I mean, there's actually some nice options now, and so overall, yeah, we never really struggled with it.
Actually, it's funny about the salads. Like, I don't know if it was like a subconscious thing, but I realized I was vegan an entire year before I ate a salad again. And I think it was like a subconscious, like, this doesn't mean I have to eat salad. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And for the first 6 months, I was only whole food plant-based. But in Washington, the produce prices were a little bit cheaper. It was a little bit easier. So I'd say the struggle I have now is being as healthy as I was when I first went vegan. I don't have a problem. I've learned really well, especially in 2020, especially 2019 and 2018, 2017. I learned really well how to where all the options are at the restaurants, and there's a ton, and they're amazing. So it's a struggle not to go spend too much and eat too much.
Yeah.
And,
I find I have the same problem.
Yeah.
Now you go to a vegan restaurant, because we don't have that many, but when we do, it's like I want to buy the whole menu. I got to take half of it.
Yeah, I do that.
I don't need half of it there.
Well, I used to be kind of thankful going to restaurants where they never had vegan dessert options, so I just stopped having dessert, which I think is a good thing, right? Less sugar and it's less processed and all that. And now they start having options, and it's hard to say.
And now you buy the whole cake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, there'll be 2-3 vegan options on the menu, and I have to have them all. Like,
oh yeah.
At least
you can't
once.
choose just one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and they put so much effort into creating it, as long as it's not like a pandering
and
thing, like they really did
try it. Because in that way,
and I'm like, I appreciate it. Yeah, and they've got to know if it's good, so I've got to try it and let them know. So yeah. Yeah. I also find it to be easy to be vegan. Like, Alaska specifically doesn't make it more difficult. It's still very, very accessible to align my morals and beliefs and ethics and everything that I've learned with my lifestyle here. Doesn't make it more difficult being in Alaska.
That leads me into the next question: how do people view animal rights in Alaska? Because I mean, you probably have a lot of experience with that, Jazzmin, doing the NARD demonstrations and stuff. How people receive that? What kind of feedback do you get? What kind of
Well, at the NARD events so far, it's been mostly vegans. So the second year especially, I tried to create like a vegan fair where I wanted people to show up who were interested in veganism or had a friend who was vegan. I see the puppy. And so the vegan fair was meant to have people walk around and learn all the different things from it's like the same dog.
Oh my goodness.
Not over here. No.
Oh my goodness.
That's amazing.
That's my boarding dog, actually.
Wow.
From here,
Jazzmin.
She's actually
No, that's okay.
dog. Yeah.
Aww. From here, it looked like magic. Like the dog went from Delisa's house right over to your house.
I'm sorry, Jazzmin. Go ahead.
Activism. Let's see. So animal activism in Alaska. For the NARD events, it was mostly vegans. And the second event, we tried to have vegan fair, and there luckily was a military youth academy class just going by and asking if they could help out on the park strip. So I was like, yeah, if you'd like to help out at this event, go through the vegan fair. And so they went to all the booths and filled out the little surveys that I had for people at the end.
Awesome.
So yeah, and those kids were very receptive, I would say. So I thought about that question, and it's hard because like it really just depends on who you're talking to. There's, I guess, a wide swing, like from the fishing and the hunting and wearing fur and stuff to people who are amazing animal activists in Alaska, a lot of them.
Yeah, I think we have kind of a broad range where you have people who are very open and receptive to it. But I do think maybe not unique to Alaska, but unique in some respects is the hunting and the fishing and the fur wearing community who seem very like extra defensive. Like I remember we went to a protest for the Iditarod, and we've done like Fur Free Friday, which is done through PETA, and you kind of get this like a go home attitude, like they think we've traveled here from out of state, you know. They don't think we're from Alaska because if you were Alaskan, you would support fur and hunting. So there's a part of the population that is that way, and there's a very negative response to animal rights. But you know, it's not everyone. There's just a handful of people that I've run to who are that way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That, you know, Anchorage is a lot more liberal than the outlying areas. And so as you get away from Anchorage, there's a lot more just, you know, politically conservative. And, you know, I don't think this should be a political issue at all. And it isn't necessarily. But there is a relationship. And so, you know, I would say that if you were just to poll Alaskans in general, of course I haven't done this, so I may be wrong, but I would say that a large proportion of Alaskans would not be in favor of animal rights. But I think the reason for that would be because they don't want to be told what to do. You know, seriously. And I understand that. I mean, that's one thing I like about Alaska, is you can kind of live your life and do what you want. And so that's one reason why I think that I don't care if somebody doesn't like if I'm vegan or not. It's like, I don't care, you know, it's my life, you know. And so, and I think that that's kind of the same thing that, like, if I wanted to kill animals, you know, I'd want the right to do that just because I'm Alaskan, because there is sort of that independent streak here.
Yeah.
And I think, but that's the perspective from which I think that animal rights would not be welcomed. Kind of like, well, don't tell me what to do, that kind of thing, as opposed to I just like to kill animals. I mean, there are a lot.
I look at it as, you know, it's the same as, you know, I'm not allowed to kill a person just because I feel like it.
Well, that's
kill an animal just because I feel like it.
I know, but even Alaska has quite a history of, you know, violence.
Well, speciesism, obviously. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
we all suffer from that everywhere. So.
Yeah.
So anyway, you guys have already told me basically what your favorite forms of activism are and what you do. So I'll skip that question, and I'm going to go on to ask: if a vegan visits where you live, visits Alaska, where should they go? What is your favorite dish that they should try? And how would they get involved with the local vegan community?
And how would they what?
Get involved with the local vegan community.
So, I mean, I guess I'll go first. I mentioned, I feel like people who come to Alaska, if they're just visiting, like Moose's Tooth is kind of a really well-known place, you know, and so I think a lot of people like to try places that are popular and famous, and that's kind of one of them. And now that they have vegan options, I would encourage someone to maybe try that out just for the whole experience.
When I ask where they should go, it doesn't have to be a restaurant.
Oh, okay. Just because you said something about a dish. So
I know it would naturally assume, but it doesn't have to be a restaurant.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that comes to mind. And then as far as like...
saying they should go to our sanctuary.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Well, that's kind of a combined
Give you
answer.
a
Where
chance
should
to
they
give a
go, and
plug.
how do they get involved with the animal community? Would be to come visit us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I am going to give anybody's social media links that you want me to include are going to be under this video when it's published.
Yeah.
So people can find the sanctuary, they can find
Mhm.
information, whatever information you guys gave me is going to be included below the video. So
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say Rachel and Mike are very humble about the marketing for their achievements and for the
Yeah.
sanctuary. So definitely go check out the sanctuary. And also, I think Delisa does a lot more activism than you probably realize, Delisa. I think you got to give yourself more credit for the Veg Fest. I mean, anybody to sit through one of those events they can't leave the same person that they walked in. And they're going to get, every corner of veganism and a good amount of it, of the information. So yeah, where would you want to go? Go to Veg Fest if it's going on. Go to the sanctuary. The Alaska Vegan Society potlucks and events. And we have a couple Facebook pages that are pretty popular for Alaska and vegans. There's Vegans of Alaska and Vegans of Anchorage. So on there, I feel like you can find what's going on. We just got a Justice for Animals chapter that just moved to Alaska. 2020 started doing events this year. So there might be a Justice for Animals event going on, really similar to Anonymous for the Voiceless.
yeah, I know.
And yeah, I think if you're in Alaska, you could do some similar things like you could do around the country, but for me, it's like the hiking. You can't do that in other places. There's, the mountains here aren't in other places. Like I remember when I lived in Washington for those couple of years, there was one mountain, like Mount Rainier, and everybody would always talk about the one mountain, how awesome the mountain was. Did you see the mountain today? Oh, did you know what the mountain did last week? And it's just funny to me because I've taken so many mountains for granted growing up here. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
but
Endless mountains and hiking here for sure.
Yeah, beautiful places to go in nature.
You guys, all right, before we go on to Delisa tell us, but Mike and Jazzmin, neither one of you told me your favorite dish, though. What's your favorite dish?
Well, right now, if I'm going to like a restaurant, we really like a place called Thai Orchid. We're into Thai food, very much like Thai food. So they have a vegan curry noodle and then a vegan like yellow curry, with rice and tofu and veggies. And so yeah, that's my favorite right now.
Well, usually it's kind of like a question, kind of asking what indigenous to your area.
Right.
That's
I don't know.
vegan, but that's okay because we're Americans, so we really have a lot of that.
Yeah.
So,
you can always find a Thai food restaurant with vegan options.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair. That's a fair answer. That's a fair answer. So. Jazzmin, what
Lots of vegetables
about you?
in Thai food also.
You like Thai food also?
I was saying lots of vegetables in Thai food also. That's always a good thing.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, my favorite there's a lot more options all the time, which is super awesome. My favorite still continues to be this place in Girdwood called Jack Sprat, and they have something called their Dream Cake, which is like this creamy blueberry cheesecake. It's vegan, of course, and they've got these fried yam fries that are breaded that are just, they're great.
I need to
They've
stop
got a lot of
asking
oil
this
in them,
question
but-
because it makes me hungry.
I know. Now we're bringing up the same challenges that we. But I also my absolute favorite is their vegan nachos, and it says vegan nachos on the menu. So I also really love the fact that they put vegan nachos, and that it's one of their most popular dishes. They said it's like the best nachos I've ever had.
So, Delisa, what would you say if a vegan visits where you live? Where should they go? What's your favorite dish? Your favorite vegan dish, and how do you think people should get involved with the local vegan community?
Well, COVID has really shut everything down drastically up here. And before this, we had a vegan B&B at our house. And so that's where they should come, to my house.
Definitely. Definitely.
And
Are you
you know,
open? I mean, are you accepting guests right now?
no, not now, because
Okay.
we just closed down last year and we didn't open back up until, it's just too much of a hassle to
Sure.
be open for, one spare person here, and then a month later you might have another one. So anyway, so we are not open for B&B guests. But we have a 2-bedroom apartment in the lower floor that just so, and we live on a lake, and we have a big organic garden. So here's the house, here's the garden, here's the lake. We have kayaks and a canoe. So if you want to come and have an all-purpose wonderful experience, you can come
That
to our
sounds wonderful.
Airbnb, except that it's not open. So that does kind of slow me down. My favorite vegan food is what's in my garden, and that's very indigenous to Alaska.
Yeah, I guess it is.
And so right now it's under the snow. But one of my favorite things to eat is actually, I call it king kale and cabbage. It's just steamed kale and cabbage together, and I eat that with my vegan parmesan on it, a little balsamic vinegar, and I eat it every single morning for breakfast, and I love it. It's my favorite thing. But I also make vegan pad thai and lots of other things that are all in my cookbook. And I have not eaten in a restaurant for some number of years. I don't remember the last time.
Wow.
So, and I never was really into eating in restaurants, because even before I was vegan, it just seemed like such a waste of money. The amount that you could spend on one meal, I could eat for days, and
But
I'm a
sometimes
good
you
cook.
just don't want to do the dishes.
My husband does the dishes and I do the cook. So anyway,
Well, see, there you go. You got one
I
up
know,
on me.
I know.
I
So
do the dishes.
anyway, and I have, I've got a great view of the lake here. The ambiance is great, and so I just, when I have eaten out, I've always thought, well, it was okay. It wasn't as good as staying home.
Yeah, especially being vegan, but it's getting better now. But especially being vegan, when I first started going vegan, and
Well, and because I'm
I did
committed
get
to,
feeling like that a lot of times. It's just like that was a waste of money. It's just not that good of
yeah,
an option.
and I'm committed to only eating.
Cheeseburger, I can make that
Right.
at home for half the price.
And since I'm committed to only eating healthy food, that
Sure.
it limits the choices, because not very many restaurants want to serve healthy food. There are some exceptions, but I'm not
But
willing
I'm
to.
sure, like in colder climates, it seems to like people want the more comfort foods. So that's probably why you don't.
I think people can make up any excuse they want for what they want to eat.
Yeah, I just find I don't know. That's just been my experience. It's like when you go to the war, like talking to my guest from Mexico the other day. When I'm in Mexico, I don't even crave the heavier foods. Uh, I love fruits and raw foods, stuff like that. I get back home and when it gets cold, I find that I want the heavier root vegetables, cooked stuff,
Well, and I think
beyond burgers, comfort foods,
and
stuff like
cooked
that.
foods, hot food. I agree. I like to have hot soups and everything. So
Yeah.
absolutely. But I'm with Jazzmin and Mike in terms of get outside and enjoy the beauty of nature, because, like I said in my introductory comments, I think that our disconnection from nature is part of our disconnection from animals. And I think getting out and feeling like we are an animal ourselves out in a wilderness kind of an area, although it's not that wilderness right on these mountains right around here. But I think getting out and hiking up some, some of the nearby mountains around here, it's so amazing that it would be a shame if all you did is just, go sit in a restaurant when you came here. You really need to get out into nature.
Well, I have to be honest. I'm not a cold weather person, so Alaska's never been like on my list of like vacation. But everybody that I've met that's been to Alaska, they just talk about how beautiful it is, how just they fall in love with it, really. And so it has like get it's raised my interest in like visiting there. So hopefully one day I will come when your B&B's open.
Right.
Jazzmin and
Yeah,
I will go out.
I want to go. I want to
Yeah,
go to your B&B,
that's
Delisa, when it's
we'll
open.
go out canoeing
I didn't
together,
know that was there.
and then we'll go.
Yeah.
And Jazzmin and I will come to the sanctuary together. So that would be wonderful.
There you go.
Awesome.
Perfect.
So, guys, final question. Where would you like to visit one day and learn about veganism there? Gives me an idea who I should try to interview in the future.
Good
Whoever.
question.
I could not think of an answer to that question when I've been to the Watkins Glen Farm Sanctuary in 2005, and I loved it there. It was just great. And I went to another animal sanctuary in Colorado. But in terms of just other parts of the world, I went to Micronesia back in 76, and I haven't been back. And so if there's any vegans there, I guess I'd like to go there. Because I'm there to go scuba diving, and I'd love to go back and scuba dive there again. But,
I guess kind of two places come to mind for me. One is like somewhere in India. I know they have a vegetarian culture. I mean, obviously not across the board, and there's been a lot of Western influence, but I'd like to kind of see how that is, where there are people who kind of have vegetarianism or veganism as like a base morality, or they grow up with it, or it's in their religion, because that's different than Western culture. And then, like I said, I moved to Alaska when I was 8. I was actually born in South Africa.
Oh.
And so I have family in South Africa, and Rachel follows some pages on Facebook, and like the South African vegan movement has grown quite a lot since I've last been there, which was in 2013. So I'd kind of like to experience that. Like, what's it like to be a vegan in South Africa right now?
Yeah.
wow.
Jasmine,
really
what about you?
I've heard a lot about veganism in Berlin, that it's one of the capitals for veganism around the world. So I'd want to go somewhere where there's like a bunch of veganism. That's where I want to go.
Somewhere where it's just easy, saturated with it.
Or it's just, uplifting because everybody's talking about it, Yeah, and it's a really good feeling. Like, I was just going to say, it's a good feeling like being around people who are already like-minded. You don't have to feel like you have to explain anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel. I love Playa del Carmen, Mexico myself, and I go there and I call it like vegan paradise. I just happen to, I have activist friends and family. I call them family down there. And so, yeah, I know what you mean. You want to go somewhere where
you're going to.
Oh, I was just saying, when you mentioned Berlin, it made me think of Israel. I've heard quite a lot about Israel being like a center for the vegan movement as well. So that would be an interesting place to visit.
Population there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think a worthy mention too. When I was in Seattle traveling there, one time I went to a restaurant called Heartbeat Cafe. I don't know if it's still around. The prices were very, very high, but it was all whole food, plant-based. I had this like kelp noodle dish that was just absolutely delicious. And I had the best smoothie I think I've ever had in my life. It was like coconut, dates. And I took the menu so that I could try to recreate it at home. That didn't go so well for me. I'm not a very good cook. But that's still my ultimate, favorite restaurant experience I've ever had. If we did have something like that here, like vegan smoothies and salads and sandwiches and bowls and all that stuff, like I really think that it'd probably be pretty popular if it was affordable for people, because that's what makes you feel
on that. You're gonna open up a restaurant.
I was gonna say, it sounds like Delisa's B&B a little bit.
Yeah, we need all the coffee shops need to turn into that. And like,
well, the interesting thing is most of the people who have stayed here were not vegan, and so I just treated them like I treat all my other guests that come to my house. It's like, well, while you're here, you're vegan, and we rented it through Airbnb mostly and VRBO, and so there were a few people who stayed here because it was vegan, but most people stayed here because it's a beautiful place, and they could see the pictures and the garden and lake. But they had to agree to not bring animal products into the house, and if they had them, they had to leave them in their car.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, but people.
That's a form of activism.
And there were some people who chose not to stay here because of that. And then they would give me this stuff. Oh, but I have a 2-year-old. These would be a lot of people from India that are vegetarian, but they really are into their dairy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to have their dairy.
And
Yeah.
they would say, well, I could be vegan, but my child has to have milk. And I said, well, you can't have dairy milk
Well, you
here.
can breastfeed here. That's fine.
And so there were some people that chose not to stay because of it. But that's okay. I mean, that's okay. And a lot of people would say, well, I'm not vegan, but, and of course, a lot of people just wanted to eat out while they were here anyway. Most people are eating out, even if they cook at home. So, I provided breakfast materials, but for all the rest of their meals, a lot of them just went out. But if they wanted to cook here, because I have a full kitchen for them, they just knew. And people really, I think people honored that. I mean, of course, I wasn't going and looking at but I could kind of tell from what was in the trash and everything. I think most people actually honored that and really appreciated being able to stay here. And they would be curious. They might ask me why I was vegan, and of course they'd look at the garden, and then I'd say, well, help yourself if you'd like some of the garden. And so anyway, yeah, I didn't mind having that rule at all, but it was, it didn't like just bring a lot of vegans here. But once in a while, it did bring some specific people, like from Australia and things, that were vegan.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so you know what? We've been doing this for over an hour and a half. I think this is a good time to maybe go ahead and say our goodbyes. Is there anything else that you guys want to say before we say goodbye?
I just want to encourage everybody to think about all the reasons why to be vegan, and to do it wherever you are, because there is a way to do it. There is a way to do it if you're committed to it, and there are so many good reasons to be vegan that just start.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe do some research and find out why to be vegan. And then the only thing I would add is, check out our Facebook and Instagram for the sanctuary.
Yeah, I would definitely say check out the Facebook and Instagram of Forgive Me Not Farm Sanctuary, and their website is this right, Mike? It's forgetmenotfs.com.
Yes.
And you can go on there and sponsor an animal, and it's so fun because you can see all the pictures of how cute they are, and even follow on the page and stuff. Rachel's really great at posting like updates, and I love hearing about what's going on there. So yeah, I would definitely say every little bit helps. Check out that website, sponsor an animal if you can, and always be willing to learn more. It's kind of just about a mindset a lot. I think if you're thinking, how can I do something instead of I can't do something, if you're thinking, how can I, eventually or now or whenever, then there'll be some way to access some of that thing or all of that thing, and maybe more than we think. So yeah, I really think that's the way the world's headed.
Perfect.
Cool.
Thank you so much, everyone. You've all been a delight and very interesting to hear about each and every one of you. It was
Thank you,
such a
Stacy.
pleasure to meet you. Such a pleasure.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe one
Yeah,
day.
thank you, Susie. I feel like we got to hang out. So this is so cool. An event that we got to do.
Yeah, that is the one plus about having the internet during something like this is that you do just be social a little bit. I'm really interested in coming to Alaska now. Maybe one day. I don't get vacations very often, but maybe one day I would love to meet you guys in person. But
Yes.
That'd be cool.
I will go ahead and let you guys go. It's getting a little later for me than it is for you, but I hope you all have a great night. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Remove you each one by one here. There we go. Good night. Wow, that was a great conversation. Really great people. Really interesting conversation. All the things that are going on in Alaska. Who knew, right? You can be vegan in Alaska. It seems like there's a very vibrant society going on there. And if you get a chance, stay at Delisa's house. Go to the sanctuary. I will put all the links below this video. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching this. I love meeting these people. Seriously, I've never been interested in going to Alaska until now, but I am interested now. Great people. So, just to let you know, my guest next week is going to be in Iran. So, I hope you will check that out. All right. Good night, everybody. Bye.